Hey everyone, let's talk about images on the web. In this video, I want to talk to you about how to use srcset for different resolution. I want to talk to you also about a media query that I discovered and you might not be aware of for displaying different, for example, images based on the type of monitor that you have. And we're going to talk also about background image and how you can use a srcset with this CSS property as well. And we're going to also see another type of format that you can use for your images. So let's use this image that I took for this example. Here you can see the raw image being displayed, and at the moment we're just displaying it with just an image tag, image source, and we got this original image. No modification done. And if you look at the DevTools in the Network tab, what you see is that I definitely didn't optimize this image. It's the raw image from the camera and you get a 22 megabyte image. You don't exactly want to ship a 22 megabyte image. It's going to be really long to load. So what you want is optimize the image. Once you optimize the image, you can see that you get something way better, way more decent. The image now is 1.2 megabytes. Once you resize it, optimize it for the web, that's what you can get. The second one is the optimized image. Third, we have srcset. So for srcset, we are using another element. We're not just using image, the image tag, we're just using picture and source. When you're using source, you can define the type of the image. So in this scenario, we have JPEG, and I created multiple versions of this image. One of the image is 640 pixel wide. The other one's a little bit higher. The other one, same thing. And the other one is definitely for retina displays and really 4K resolutions. So we still need this image element, and it acts as a fallback, and it also acts as some kind of proxy for other attributes that we're going to see later. But what exactly is the effect of a srcset? So the effect of a srcset is kind of simple. Depending on the device that you have, you're going to load a different type of image. So by default, if I just refresh the page, I see that I'm using the optimized one, so highest resolution available image. But what if I'm using something else, like an iPhone? If I'm using an iPhone, I'm using actually the lowest one, because it's based basically on the number of pixels that is available, and we just say 640 pixels. That's what's available, and so that's the image that we are loading. And it has definitely an effect, because the smaller is the image and the smaller is the size of the image. So here you're loading an image that is 35 kilobytes instead of the previous one that was 1.2 megabyte. Let's take a look at this one. So what is exactly the difference? There is no much difference, right? The difference is we have another format that is called AVIF, and it's quite new. And because it's quite new, some of browsers will not support it. And that's why we have picture actually. Picture allows you to define multiple types of images, and you have so multiple sources. And source is actually quite interesting because source also has a media query, and we're going to talk about that a little bit further in the video. So AVIF, what is exactly the difference? Is it really a big benefit? Let's take a look. So because I'm using Chrome and the latest version, AVIF is actually compatible with this browser. So the image loaded here is the one with the highest resolution, and we can see it's 48.3 kilobytes. I don't know if you remember this one, 1.2 megabytes. And we don't exactly see the difference. Don't pay attention to the box shadow, just pay attention to the image. And there is a bit of difference. We can actually see it, or at least I don't know if you see it with the YouTube compression, but there is a bit of a difference, but it's definitely negligible. And you get 1 MB less data to send to your client, so it's going to load way faster. So now let's take another look at this one. This one, there is not a lot of differences, and the only difference is the loading attribute. The image element has an attribute called loading, and loading controls the way the image loads on the page. It's mainly used if you have an image that doesn't appear right away on your page. So on a marketing landing page, for example, you might have a multiple set of images, and the second images might be out of the screen. The third one, the same, and maybe you're gonna have a fourth images completely at the bottom. You don't need to load those images right away. So what you want to do is loading them after the page renders. Loading lazy should be basically used for images that you don't see on the screen right away when you open the page. You also need to specify the dimension of the image. So while the image is loading, the browser is going to be able to understand what is the size that it should left for the image. Okay, so I think we're pretty much there, right? You might have noticed there is something that I left, and that's something we're not going to cover too much, but there is something that you need to add and you need to think of is accessibility. So in image, always has this attribute called alt for alternative text, and in this situation it's just Marcy in my hand. In another video I will show you voiceover and how you can test basically accessibility on the web. It's quite interesting and I definitely recommend to do it. But let's take a look at one last example. And the last example, I'm not using any image. So it's kind of a strange situation, right? Because I can clearly see the image. It's because I'm using background image. So background image is useful, well, for background images. For accessibility reason, sometimes it is recommended to use a background image because you don't want exactly to describe the image that is in front. It's more for presentation. But background images have a tiny problem. They don't exactly have a lot of support for srcset at the moment. They do have an helper method, a CSS helper method, if we can call it that way, that is called image set. And at the moment, it's not really well supported. You actually need a prefix for that. For Chrome, in this example, I used the prefix WebKit. So for some reason, I haven't been able to use both AVIF and JPEG. But you can definitely see the impact that it has. You can toggle between the two if you want to see it. So what's happening with the image set is that it's based basically on the device. So iPhone 5 SE is not going to get the same device as another one. So we see this image, 180 kilobytes being loaded. I refresh it for SE and that's exactly the same thing. Now let's try to put the Surface Duo. I'm loading it again and we get a different one, meaning that apparently the Surface Duo has a better resolution. Let's try with the Galaxy Fold, and then again we get a different one. So depending on the device that you're using, it's going to try to load a different image. I'm just going to show you this media query that is actually quite interesting, and you might want to load your image differently if you need to based on that. It is a color-gamut CSS media query. You have different value for this media query. One is sRGB, and if you are into photography or camera, you might have seen sRGB a little bit everywhere, and on the export, for example, settings. And P3 is also another value. So maybe you would want to adapt for this kind of monitor. On this website you have a demonstration comparing normal and wide gamut images, and it's quite interesting. So you see on this WebKit logo that you're not exactly supposed to see anything except a red background. But if you have a P3 display, you can clearly see the WebKit logo. That's pretty much it. If you like this video, do not hesitate to like it. You can subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this one, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.